Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Silky Shah. I am the Interim Executive Director of the Detention Watch Network, which is a national coalition working to expose and challenge the injustices of the U.S. immigration, detention, and deportation system and advocate for profound change that promotes the rights and dignity of all persons. We are pleased to have you with us on the call today as we launch the End the Quota campaign calling for the elimination of the detention bed quota from the Congressional Appropriations Bill. Our next speaker is Wade Henderson, President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw, and good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, I'm Wade Henderson, President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, a coalition of more than 200 national organizations dedicated to building an America as good as its ideals. I want to thank my colleagues at Detention Watch Network for organizing this event today, and I'm happy to be on this call to explain how the detention bed mandate is just one part of a much broader and indefensible criminalization of people in the name of profit. Our nation's electorate is undergoing profound demographic shifts that our elected officials can no longer ignore if they want to, in the words of Senator Lindsey Graham, and I quote, stay in business for the long term. Now, we've seen leaders in both parties who recognize this. Senators Rand Paul and Mike Lee recently joined the Leadership Conference at a forum to discuss the need to overhaul our nation's criminal justice policies. House Majority Leader Eric Cantor has been a vocal proponent of updating the Voting Rights Act. And Speaker John Boehner has been trying to move the House in the right direction on immigration reform, and we're certainly holding out hope that he will succeed. Now, one area with unprecedented bipartisan momentum is the urgent need to reform our nation's mass incarceration policies, which have led to the largest prison population in the world and marked millions of men and women with a scarlet letter making it harder for them to work, raise a family, and even vote. The failed war on drugs, misguided mandatory minimum sentences, and the boom in immigration detention have caused our nation's prison population to skyrocket. And in both the criminal justice and immigration settings, we have seen a disturbing growth in the use of privately owned, for-profit prison corporations replacing the work of state and federal-run institutions. Now, as many states have begun to reform their prison systems for the better, prison companies have turned to the federal government and our immigration enforcement system to make up the difference for their shareholders. And that is what brings us to the detention bed mandate that we're discussing here today. It may go by a different name, but the inherent abuses of the process are basically the same. Bed mandates are just a euphemism for wrong-headed mandatory minimums. Justice and public safety should never take a backseat to maximizing corporate profits. There may be some areas where the privatization of government functions may make sense, but where our most fundamental human rights are concerned, there is simply no rightful place for profit-making ventures like the Corrections Corporation of America and GEO. For years, private prison corporations have argued that they can save taxpayers money over government-run facilities. Yet these savings have not come to fruition, and in a number of states have abandoned or are seriously reconsidering their use. For private prisons are more likely to have corruption, unsafe conditions, and lower wages, and are less likely to focus on prisoner rehabilitation. CCA, for example, has agreements in some states with a guaranteed 90% occupancy rate, which ensures that people are locked up when they don't need to be. Now, Congress could and should deal with this by taking up the detention reforms that were included in the Senate-passed immigration bill. But while that bill is being held up over election year politics, Congress could take a much easier step in the appropriations process by simply getting rid of the immigration equivalent of mandatory minimums. We urge lawmakers to repeal the bed mandate and to focus on public safety and common sense instead. The 34,000 bed mandate is an indelible stain on American democracy. I mean, its primary purpose is to feed the bottom line profits of private prisons who are detaining individuals who would otherwise be eligible for temporary release. The mandate is not needed to ensure that individuals who face deportation in all circumstances are available for their subsequent hearings, because you can do that without this process. And there seems to be ample space in federal and state facilities that would allow the appropriate number of individuals to be detained without driving their incarceration by virtue of this mandate. And so we believe that this is the start of a much broader education process, that when we make known to appropriators how this amendment and this provision is being used, that their concerns will overcome the reticence that perhaps existed previously and strike a provision like this. And again, keep in mind that the appropriations process is not the place for substantive legislative initiatives as a general matter. This is an issue that clearly should be a part of some comprehensive immigration reform, and to use this as a barnacle on the ship of state is really, from our perspective, just unconscionable.